right, halftime on a Tuesday, and we welcome you inside our ESPN Arkansas studios. Bill Elson, Matt Smackdown Jenkins, Maddie T at the controls. Got lots to get to on the show today, and that does include our first guest a little earlier than usual. But we are very proud to have on a guy we've had on a couple times before, ESPN baseball analyst, former Major Leaguer Chris Burke, joining us talking about the Major League Baseball draft. Chris, appreciate your time. How you doing today?
I am doing really well, guys. How are you?
We're doing well.
So
before we get into the draft stuff, when I ask somebody that's worked that is a baseball person and they say they're doing well, with what's playing out in the public right now, and I'm not asking you to pick sides or anything, just I'm a little sick to my stomach as to what's going on with maybe the ability to even play a Major League Baseball season. The words that came from the commissioner yesterday not helping. I just wonder what your thoughts are as somebody that's played the game and as an analyst.
Just really disappointed. Really disappointed that, two parties that have been entrusted with so much can't figure out a way to communicate clearly enough and honestly enough and establish a level of trust to where they could get something done. I just don't think – I'm a player. I'm grateful to the union. Obviously, I want to support the union. But it's frustrating to me that there has been zero willingness for either party. I guess zero is not fair. I haven't been in the room. But the fact that the last 24 hours have been as ugly as they've been, it speaks to just a level of distrust that's pretty hard to understand with all that's surrounding these negotiations.
Yeah, and that's one of the points I've tried to make in talking about these negotiations over the last couple of months is that level of distrust that goes back years and years. I wonder what you feel like the effect could be on the players who are coming into professional baseball now. These are the first group of players that are coming in to the game professionally. It's during the coronavirus pandemic, and at a time where a couple of levels of minor league baseball are going to be wiped out. There will be fewer professional baseball players, fewer coaches, and we don't even know if there'll be a season now, what next year will be like. So for all the guys who've signed pro contracts, whether free agents or drafted players, the uncertainty that they're facing is something that I've never really thought about before. I wonder what you would think too.
I agree with that. You're all excited for draft day and you sign, and then what? Like nobody knows, and then you got no minor league season, it looks like. I would assume if they get clearance, there'll be some sort of fall ball instructional league, at your team's facility. Maybe the fall league, I don't know. Normally drafted players don't go there anyway. And then, we're going into next year where, I think the deal runs through the end of next season. So I would assume that next season would be normal, but again, we know when the deal runs out at the end of a year, there's always going to be a threat of a lockout because that's the player's leverage, right? Or not a lockout, but a strike. So it is very unsettling times. And honestly, I think that's why we probably saw some major college players, I think, price themselves out of being drafted probably in rounds 2 or 3 or 4 there and end up back at school. And maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't have any inside info there, but perfect example for the University of Arkansas, Casey Opitz not getting drafted makes no sense on any level.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can think of is he put a price tag that was higher than where he was valued currently, and he's going to go back to school and see how things shake out.
We're speaking to Chris Burke here on Halftime. So, Chris, you just brought up Casey Opitz. What reasoning do you believe that he wasn't picked? Was it strictly just the financial aspect of it, or is there an area of his game? We know that and Chris Peterson mentioned this, and I'm sure you did as well, he could catch for probably a major league team right now if it came down to it. Hitting, that could go back and forth. Is it hitting that he needs to focus on, or do you think this was more of a financial move or a financial indifference between both sides?
I definitely think the hitting is why he wasn't a first-round pick. But I think, especially when you consider he's a switch hitter and he shows really good bat-to-ball skills, and I think there's a ceiling there from a hitting standpoint that he hasn't tapped into that he very well might have shown us had the season played out. I think that's why he wasn't picked higher. Also, I think that there's potential that, there's a lot of talk around the game that there might be an automated strike zone at some point. And so we saw a bit of a trend starting this year, but we hear the conversation already being had that, okay, well, if we're not going to be getting strikes based on how talented our catcher is at receiving to a certain degree, then maybe that skill is not going to be valued as high as it once was. Now, I still think pitchers are always going to love throwing to catchers that they like the way they receive the ball. That being said, nobody's going to care the presentation of the catch. So long as the ball is caught, the computer is going to tell you whether it was a ball or strike. You know what I mean? So maybe his incredible skill set at receiving and throwing and blocking is not being valued at where you would think it should be. And also, he was a little late to the scene last year, first year starting. That being said, he caught for Team USA and did really, really well. Those guys loved him. So I don't know. My short answer is I don't know, but it's definitely more complicated than just he wasn't a top 5 rounder, because that's not the truth.
And then one transition over to the number 2 pick in the draft, and something that me and Phil spoke quite a bit about, and kind of the surprise of the draft with Heston Kjerstad going number 2, and the Orioles picking him instead of Austin Martin from Vanderbilt. Just your thoughts on the pick and kind of how you see Heston Kjerstad's career moving, how his career will pan out with the Orioles.
Well, I love the pick. ESPN covering the draft, they assigned us players to kind of be the point man on. So when those players got picked, we would go first in the analysis, and we spent time setting up video breakdowns and kind of really diving into their statistical breakdowns and that kind of deal, and doing a lot of research on, not that I didn't already know Heston very well, because obviously I covered him for 2+ years in the SEC, but calling people and talking to people. And so I was all over the pick. I was telling people that don't be surprised if Kjerstad goes higher than the back half of the top 10. Now, I do think ultimately he went second because the Orioles got him for well under the slot value of that pick. And had he held his guns to wanting the full number of that slot, he may not have gone second. But I love the upside. There's only one thing that I can poke a hole at in Heston's game, and that is he did not walk as much as you would expect somebody who's been that good of a hitter from a damage standpoint to have walked. I think he would have walked a ton more this year, both because people would have just pitched around him and because I think he was starting to differentiate between balls and strikes at a higher level. But really, other than that, there's really nothing you can poke a hole at. Production, batting average, damage, homers, raw power, the diversity with which he had hit his homers from foul pole to foul pole. He can run. He's at least an average major league corner outfielder. People rave about his work ethic and his makeup. By all accounts, he was a model teammate and student. And so I think he's got a chance to have a fantastic career, maybe even on an all-star career.
I want to ask about Casey Martin. A couple years ago, we're thinking maybe Casey's got the stuff to be the top overall pick. I think going by tools, he might. Turning that into production on the field. And it's not that he didn't have a bad career. He had a great career at Arkansas. Moving into the third round, I don't know. There's something about Casey, if a couple things click, that's a steal for Philadelphia. What do you think, Chris?
Well, it's definitely a high-end pick. I mean, there was nobody as talented as Casey, certainly in the third round, and you could maybe make an argument that if we went and did a combine, he would have been a top 5 talent athletically, right? If there was a Indianapolis combine for the baseball draft, he would have been one of the talks of the draft. I would have had no doubt about that. But, baseball is evaluated in a much different manner. And the truth is, Casey just swung and missed at such a high level his second year that it was hard for people to think that he was going to make enough contact to be valued in the first round. Now, I was shocked he didn't go in the second round. Like, the talent is so good and the ceiling is so high. I was very surprised he didn't go in the second round. But, yeah, I think, if you want to dream on him, he's got physical tools in line with, like, Mookie Betts. Seriously. Like, he's that athletic and that fast twitch, and he's got that much power in a small frame. But, is he got the number one skill in that sport, which is aptitude? Does he have the ability to make adjustments? And I think the lack of that is what ended up causing him to fall.
Yeah, that's well said. I think that's one of the things that did set Kerstad apart from Martin when you watched Arkansas these last season and a fifth, I guess. Before we let you go, Chris, how about a thought on the state of college baseball, which I think the importance in the development of players, college now becomes more important as far as that development is concerned for the professional game with wiping out 2 levels of minor league baseball. You got a ton more players on each team, the same amount of scholarships. I keep telling everybody, like, the fall scrimmages are going to be absolutely incredible to watch.
Oh, Major League Baseball, professional baseball's loss is certainly going to be our game. Now, there's going to be a lot of tough conversations being had over the next 6 or 8 months by college coaches. They took away the roster limits, but at the same time, you still got to manage, especially at a place like Arkansas where there's so many talented kids. Everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play early. So it's going to be a difficult time in that regard. That being said, once they finally, decide who's going to be on the travel squad and roll out their team, the level of college baseball is going to be is probably as sharp as we've ever seen and as talented as we've ever seen. And it's not going to be like a one-year blip. I mean, obviously the kids that come that didn't get drafted will be in the system 2, 3, 4 years. And so, and I think the interest in our sport is just going to continue to rise, especially as the ardent baseball fan gets disenchanted with the professional game and all the acrimony there. So I think it's we potentially could be entering a glory day season for college baseball. And if you're an Arkansas fan, you can make a case that this is the glory days for that program. I mean, it's arguably the best facility in the country. They got one of the best, if not the best, head coach in the country, and their talent level has been, obviously their success speaks to it, is as high as anyone in college baseball, and their fan base absolutely loves it and is such a great representative of our sport. And so there's never been a better time than now to be a Arkansas Razorback / college baseball fan.
You're right. Preaching to the choir there, Chris. Hey, you did great work on the draft show.
Yes.
Really miss seeing you at the ballpark and seeing you call games. Wish we'd get back to that as soon as possible. Chris Burke, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it very much.
Man, I do too, and I'm looking forward to getting back to Baum Walker. It's one of my favorite places. So y'all
Absolutely.
Be well.
You got it. Well,
Appreciate it, Chris.
Next year. See you there next year. God willing, and people keep masking up. We will see you next year there, Chris. 877-377-6963 if you want to react to that interview. Or any questions that you might have for Nikki Chavanel is coming up in a couple of segments. We've got, of course, a lot of recruiting talk to get to with Nikki, with a couple of signees joining Arkansas's 2021 class over the last week. And those are the two guests today. Plus, I'm angry at Rob Manford.
Are you really?
Not a big fan of the documentary Long Gone Summer, which I did watch last night. Got a couple of thoughts on all of that stuff. Get off my lawn later on today. And we'll joke around with the guys a little bit. Should be a fun Tuesday. Stick around on Halftime.